Hi everyone and welcome back. This is Sky coming on to talk to you about the new nodal paradigm impact for all signs. Yes, I am talking about the transit change of the nodal axis to North Node in Aquarius, South Node in Leo. I will put the dates below in the description box. But yes, we are just now moving into about a year and a half transit with a nodal axis shift. I find that these specific shifts are very helpful and very sort of practical to implement certain changes into our lives. I've noticed that these videos do quite well on the channel, so I'm happy to be here providing some intuitive messages about the nodal axis as well as a few excerpts for each individual zodiac sign with timestamps below. And yes, everyone, well, let's get into talking about this nodal paradigm shift. So I'll talk a little bit about concluding on the North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo, which we have been in since early 2025, as well as linking below that video if you would like to do some retrospect on the previous paradigm we've been in. And yes, let's talk about the way that things are shifting from a point of externalization and the other to more of a internalization perspective of agency that will begin to become very clear as we move into especially August and September 2026 and beyond. So the previous nodal axis that we had with the North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo, it would have wanted us to begin to compartmentalize things in our lives differently. Okay, it would have given us a lot of conscious ideation about dreams that were really far out there, things that we'd never done before. In some cases, life changes that were out of our control, that we may have known we would eventually go through, but would have become palpably expressed in a tangible sense during the last year and a half. So one of the main things that I feel coming beyond the previous nodal axis is that there is a sense of needing to hold ourselves in the realization that we have probably been through a lot. The previous nodal axis is definitely one of the more climactic nodal axes when it comes to long built up issues suddenly coming to a head, or, once in a lifetime types of events. So, moving into North Node in Aquarius, South Node in Leo, we are in some cases, for some people, picking up the pieces of what has happened before, perhaps redefining ourselves after major life-changing events, perhaps returning to the drawing board and redefining our personal self-concept, as I talked about also with the Jupiter in Leo video, okay? And we have a lot of sort of progress and updates and evolution to foster within ourselves, okay, as we move into this nodal axis. And a lot of the previous nodal axis, again with like South Node and Virgo especially, dealt with getting things kind of like concluded upon, organized properly, and in some cases disposed of or, reappropriated so that this is more possible and that the odds are more favorable to do so. So if I'm getting into a little bit of like what is the best sort of positioning to place ourselves in as we move into this new nodal axis, I'm feeling that we need to do everything that we can to make the odds more favorable. So this can look like having the right things in your refrigerator. Okay, that's very South Node in Virgo, right? So that it's more favorable, that you have a good diet. This can also look like having the right budgeting in place and the right sort of diversification in your financial life so that the odds are better, that you don't lose out to, market crashes, so that you don't spend through all of your savings, so that you don't lose to inflation. Okay, there is also this feeling to me this time with North Node in Aquarius, South Node in Leo, there's a feeling to me that there are a lot of odds sort of like against the individual and against sort of thriving in our own interpersonal, or I should say just personal lives. So we have to really take external effort. I would say we have to take very conscious effort to add some good odds to the mix, okay? So that's going to be different for everybody. But, you know, as we come out of the South Node in Virgo, it's good to think like, what can I do to just make the odds a little bit better that I succeed in any given situation? This can also absolutely be about the body, you know, the budget, the diet, obviously. It can also be about interpersonal relationships, you know, knowing other people. If I know, for example, that this person struggles with narcissism, or this person over here struggles with PTSD, or perhaps this person has like an inferiority or superiority complex. If I already know these things, what can I do to make the odds better that there aren't like implosions in these relationships? Okay, if I'm dealing with someone, for example, with like an inferiority complex, it's not going to be very good odds for me to, for example, like talk about how they're struggling, or talk about, you know, how well I'm doing. Okay. So I'm going to have to be cognizant of that. So I know it sounds kind of like maybe we're having to think a lot about where other people are, but that is a very big component of this nodal axis, because there's this element of positioning and this element of sort of personal power that deals with communicative mastery with the South Node in Leo, also with Uranus and Gemini. And we have to be smart when we engage the board of life. We have to be... This also deals with coming from the previous nodal axis as well. There was a lot of emotional intelligence to be gained during the North Node in Pisces. There was a lot of interpersonal knowledge to be gained. We learned who people were. We learned, you know, what is going to be a successful business model and what is not during that nodal axis. There is so much data, okay, so much intel coming out of the previous nodal axis, but we do have to organize it and we have to apply it. Okay, that is definitely, as we transition fully into North Node in Aquarius, South Node in Leo, how we apply certain data, how we choose to allow ourselves to change based on what we've learned about the economy, what we've learned about certain areas, what we've learned about certain people. All of this changes the odds as to how we will be positioned for a very long time to come after we finish this nodal axis, okay? So hitting around like early 2028, how we apply what we've gained through 2025 and half of 2026 during the Pisces Virgo nodal axis, how we now apply it during Aquarius Leo axis will position us and give us a stature, or give us a, 11th, 5th house axis, right? On the collective, we're going from, we are going from 12th and 6th house, and now we'll go to 11th, 5th, and you guys know then we're going to go to 10th and 4th, okay, when we get into North Node in Capricorn, South Node in Cancer, to finish out the 2020s decade. And then also we're getting closer, not quite, but getting closer to Uranus in Cancer with that. So do you see how we're kind of moving from this like data gathering, collection energy, organization energy of 2025 and 2026, then to application 2026 and 2027, and then to posture, stature, and positioning in 28 and 29. And from there, that does get very climactic, and that does in some cases get very final. So here we are having the pieces and having to now play the pieces on the chessboard, for example, with this specific nodal axis now. So let me think of what I feel to be the most critical concept of navigating this timeline. I feel that it's getting to some degree victory through agency. That word agency is really coming up strongly for me with this nodal axis, because what we deal with the North Node in Aquarius and South Node in Leo, we deal with this sort of powerful, almost extreme group orientation with the North Node, right? That sort of head of the dragon being acquainted with the collective 11th house with the sign of Aquarius says to me that like people or the collective is going to really be looking at like, how do I mix with the group? How do I get into like a political group? How do I get into a community? How do I get into some type of integrated system to grow. And what you'll actually see during this timeline is quite an aversion to self-determination and quite an aversion to, making our own way. For example, even in like hyper quote unquote independent societies or groups, you're going to see this like really powerful desire for some other entity to make something happen for them. This could, for example, be the economic elite relying on the stock market to keep things going and not necessarily, some type of real merit or real capacity. This could, for example, in another concept or another area, be some type of group of people relying on some type of outdated political infrastructure to do it for them. So you see, it's like not about our own two hands. It's not about individual works. It's about some type of system, machine, or some kind of group, sort of constellation of people or businesses or components, almost within its own right, providing to us. This could also be like AI, okay, relying on sort of like a constellation of collective knowledge and archives to like spit information back at you rather than figuring it out yourself. So North Node in Aquarius is one of the more difficult North Nodes because it really, in some people's cases, in most people's cases, hinders individual capacity. And it puts you in this state usually where you're reliant on, for example, a group of businesses to keep your retirement fund high. You're reliant maybe on a machine or a program to give you certain information. You're reliant maybe on all of these like collective groups to like generate a certain reality space. And what's hard is actually during North Node in Aquarius, this becomes culturally acceptable. Okay, because the North Node deals a lot with what, again, the collective focus is on. It's like, that's what I think I want. I think I want a situation where I don't have to work for things. So communal efforts, communism, yes, where I don't feel like I alone have to figure something out. I absolutely do have a group of people or a village, or it's not always negative, right? There are positives in a sense where you can get more group support, you can get more community support. But then you're on a different footing, right? And it's a sort of a different game than, for example, like doing something on your own. But yeah, the collective will really be wanting to grow through certain communal efforts. But it's more with the 11th house, right? It's not so much like grassroots, okay? This is not like your local rural community. This is not like your on-the-ground support metrics so much. It's more about these really high-level sort of non-tangible features. AI is a perfect example. For example, like ETF funds or things that combine like a lot of different business efforts, collective political groups as well, intertwining or interweaving certain ideas, consolidation of certain political or ethnic groups. Larger degree imperialism, definitely with this one, but it will definitely rely again on consolidating various ethnic groups or becoming like one commune of multiple moving parts. And with the South Node in Leo, of course, yes, very imperial, very warlike, very, especially with Saturn and Neptune in Aries. We have a trine to the South Node in Leo, and we have obviously a sextile to the North Node, so it's going to feel very incredible to be like mixing these large scale efforts together, and we're going to feel a very large sense of pride about, wow, look at how we've consolidated all of this knowledge into like one simple format with perhaps an AI group, or look at what we've accomplished, mixing together multiple ethnic groups into one homogeneous kind of banner or something. And the problem with this is it will get impossible for the individual to really find themselves within it. And people are going to really be seeking catharsis in these larger moves. Okay, so there's going to be a greater dependence on media, a greater dependence on news, a greater attention onto geopolitical situations for sure. But it also feels like a lack or a reduction of personal power or personal decision making, because it feels like I'm seeing a lot of people during this nodal axis looking at their like stock brokerage to decide whether they can move house, for example, or a lot of people, yes, just looking at the markets or looking at, I don't know, the inflation rate, or looking at the gas price, or looking at even certain political dominance in certain areas to decide if they will make certain decisions or not. So it's such a high level of counterparty risk, or such a high level of complexity, I feel, that could be being put onto decisions of agency. Okay, so like, am I going to finish that degree or not? Well, let me look at the markets. Let me look at the political dynamic where the university is. Let me look at all these different things, which is not certainly, it's prudent to consider all of these things, but I'm also feeling like this can become a bit of a prison, can't it? Or I'm feeling like some of these things that we feel are empowering us can become confining when we are looking to them to grant permission as to whether we make certain moves or not. So I do feel that with this nodal axis, like what we might have considered to just be responsible or mature, or to be kind of, thoughtful about the future or thoughtful about our resources, can now become kind of like some type of factor that reduces agency. So that is exactly what we want to counter here, because I feel that the main victory that we can achieve during this nodal axis is through agency. Okay, that word agency to me is so powerful and so strong right now, as I feel like a lot of people over this entire decade especially, but even towards the end of the 2010s, there's been a lot of confinement, right? Abstract confinement and real confinement. And I feel that people have kind of been biding their time, or they've been, really trying to build up savings or build up health or build things up for a point in time when it's needed. And now there's maybe a hesitation, or there is maybe a feeling that we've come far past the point of needing this, but there is such a accustomed feeling to being in a confined state that it's kind of like bearable now, or it's like, if I've done so many years of this, I can do more type of thing. And I feel that this is one of the more blind nodal axes, in the sense that the North Node in Aquarius really dominates the consciousness. And again, if we're pulling back and looking at what the North Node and the South Node are, aside from what sign they're in, again, the North Node is kind of like collective focus, purpose, what I think that I want, what I very consciously feel that I need to like move toward. And then the South Node is a feeling of a hidden power, or something that is beneath the surface that is not so visible, but determines a lot of the real power at hand or real capacity. This could be like what's happening behind the scenes, what we're maybe thinking about inside, but we're not communicating. And also just more of a, I would say, I don't know what the right word is. It's like more of a, what's actually coming about, or what the actual sequence of reality is determining, as compared to like what we think we want with the North Node, or what we think we're after. So with the South Node in Leo, it's one of the more powerful positions for the South Node, but it says to me that it's like power through agency. It's power through independent capacity, through ensuring that we are standing or posturing ourselves in the most capable way that does the most highly favored or most powerfully generated sequence that we can. It's like the personal arc. It's like the personal character development. It's like also like personal emblems or embodiment. It's definitely a rite of passage or some type of self-becoming. And all the urgency that we've been feeling in the previous nodal axis should be upregulated into some type of more direct agency. Okay? So you can't really fall into pride, or you can't fall into like, maybe someday I'll do this, or maybe I'll eventually get things right in my life. I feel like this is a period of time where we can't just bide after a certain point, especially as we start getting towards 2027, okay? It's very, very hard to just be waiting for things to be okay, or just waiting until a period of time that we're going to get things right in our life. We're just waiting for, the right chain of events to sort of reach out and save us. This is definitely a save yourself kind of energy. This is definitely an energy of agency, an energy of choosing to control what is appropriate for us to control to make our lives better, not needing to, control other people's things, not needing to. There's going to be a big problem with that with North Node in Aquarius. I'm going to work through other people's ideas or other people's sphere of influence rather than my own, because I'm too scared to actually, work with what is mine to actually control. And it's better maybe to manipulate or influence someone else's stuff so that I'm less negatively impacted if something bad happens, because it's not my thing. That's going to be a major shadow of the North Node in Aquarius. And there are going to be a lot of ego crisis during this nodal axis, because a lot of people are very afraid to work within their own agency, and they're very consciously off the beaten path of what that even is. And again, they're looking at these other sort of collective elements to find it. It's like my agency is, again, in some type of market pressure, or my agency is in some kind of, religious group or some kind of political ideology, or maybe other people decide what my agency is, right? With the North Node in the collective 11th house. The group is wearing a red shirt. I'd better put on a red shirt, okay? Otherwise, I'm going to stand out. So what I really love about it, though, is I love that people can feel a lot of life force grow in their lives through activating their own personal agency and sort of taking authority over what is truly theirs to authorize. Okay, South Node in Leo. There can be a lot of healing and growth in health, increase in longevity even through this. Okay, the South Node in Leo gives the warmth of the sun, right? It's life-giving. So there's something of a code switch, or something of a deep internal shift toward agency that can increase your longevity, heal chronic illnesses, give you more energy, and help you also to shine more in your own right, or to be more of who you're meant to be, if you can access your own agency in an appropriate way that is not skewed or misplaced, right? Because there could also be a lot of misplaced personal agency here, people trying to control things that are not, that is abuse of power, okay, or abuse of authority. So all of the organization of South Node and Virgo should be getting us toward a point of recognizing clearly what is our own agency, and then to now truly act through it, okay? It's really a beautiful character arc and personal evolution, as well as an increase of personal glow, attractiveness, glow up energy, right? South Node in Leo. If we can just find the right way to deploy our own agency. So yes, without further ado, everyone, let's talk about the sign by sign. So I will go through all 12 of the zodiac signs and give you guys some brief insights on this nodal axis for your sign. And there are timestamps below. Do check out this channel on Patreon as well if you want to see all 12 of the monthly sign by signs. We'll have them there for August and further. Also weekly forecasts, and you can hit the join button below on YouTube here as well to get access to those as well. So yes, Aries in the nodal axis of North Node in Aquarius, South Node in Leo, welcome. Let's talk about you guys for this timeline. Okay, Aries, this is about dispelling heaviness, fostering creativity, and beginning to resolve certain enigmas in your life. This is a very opportune nodal axis for you. I really like it. I think it will be one of the better 15 to 18 month periods that you've had in a long time. The South Node makes a wonderful trine to whatever you have in Aries, and you get a great sextile from the North Node. So you have a lot of combination of purpose as well as sort of internal motivation supported by external events. to really build a very nice, obvious, linear bridge in your life to make progress. But I feel like you've got to focus on getting behind yourself a bit more. There's going to be a lot of work that needed to be done in 2025 and 2026. And there's still time in the remaining calendar year of 2026 if you're struggling with any kind of like mental health or any kind of sort of like motivational, almost down regulation or something. This will have to be like adamantly focused on. And you may have to make like really shocking, contrasting choices as we move through the final part of 2026 so that you can ensure that you're stepping out in the most powerful position in 2027 to kind of work along all of these points. So I'm feeling like you may have certain ideas coming out of the previous nodal axis about really hardcore, almost deprivation-oriented choices that really like build resources. For example, too much austerity or too much frugality to the extent that you could be depriving yourself because you want to like save up enough money to do something, or you want to save up enough energy to do something. And you could find that a lot of this has a certain frequency limitation. It's like, I thought that living in like a concrete box or, you know, a very cheap apartment or some type of rundown experience would grow my resources, but in fact I'm now having a motivational crisis, or, you know, there's maybe less utility to this experience, so it's kind of also down-regulating my productivity or down-regulating my income at the same time. So you see that certain things are more about frequency and how you feel, or how you, not just how you feel, but how you physically, almost electrically or energetically, at a level of frequency vibe with an area, or synergistically experience a certain plane of existence, rather than like predetermined budgets or predetermined grids of austerity. Because I'm feeling something that's kind of like masquerading as eventual freedom or masquerading as eventual possibility, but this could be kind of like an indentured servitude contract, or this could be not in time or not in date. One thing that I also really like about this current nodal axis, I love that it wants us to get up to date. It wants us to, with Jupiter, also with the South Node in Leo, and they're approaching each other over this next year. It's very, very, very powerful for getting evolved with the most current level of yourself, and not sometimes accepting outdated, outworn scenarios because they're familiar or because they are just making sense on paper. Those are very difficult scenarios as we go through this next year. Especially for your sign, with this nice synergy between this nodal axis, I would work more toward upgrading, evolving, really fleshing out your character narrative, and making sure you're not settling for density or settling for heaviness. And you will see a very enigmatic evolution happen. You will also notice that, your popularity will increase under this nodal axis. It's a nice axis actually for dating or the growth of romance, actually. So you see also, in order to do that, you're going to have to make sure that you're defining your self-concept in a way that communicates to the external, so that you're attracting the right kind of people in. For example, if we're working with like an outworn, over familiar, austere grid, it's going to be very hard to attract the right people in. We're going to attract the types of people in who are more at that level. So it's easy here also to start romance or relationships with people who you would have liked like 10 years ago, or this would have been in a previous version of yourself appropriate, but you could have a sort of like a want for more, and I'm feeling this in career as well, like in all the spheres of your life. It's this kind of like ebb and flow between, I'm doing well in the career I've had for a long time, or I'm attracting the types of people that I would have wanted in like 2015 or something. And this is giving to me because I still connect with who I was then. But there could be something that's just like wanting more. And this can be shadowy as well. This can be a bit of a problem where you have to really be able to disambiguate between what is just an insatiable want for more and what is truly maybe not good enough for you at this point, or not harmonizing with your need for evolution. But what is good is it's kind of all dictated by your own action to evolve or not. So as long as you're evolving, as long as you're upregulating into this new evolved self-concept, the right career things, the right relationships, all of that's going to harmonize at a frequency level. It's all like your choice and based on the action you take. So yeah, you can kind of use that to measure out here, like, okay, I'm attracting a type of person that feels outdated, or this job feels outdated. Oh, I'm not taking action to evolve. So it's very easy actually to make progress in this nodal axis. It's just having the courage to move forward. And with Saturn and Neptune in your sign, you should have a lot of energy currency to do so, but I understand this might be kind of like a step-by-step thing, and it could be a bit of a cloudy, or I don't know, full of plot twist experience. But also extremely relieving and extremely gratifying to choose to evolve rather than to stagnate. So moving on to Taurus. Okay, hi Taurus. Thank you so much for coming on for this nodal axis shift. Okay, this is a bit of a more challenging one, and I don't want you to worry too much because you have a lot of relief from other transits. Okay, Uranus has left your sign, relief. But yes, of course, this is a double square nodal axis for you, and it is also this way for Scorpio. So what we have is kind of like similar to Aries in the sense that there could be a bit of an evolution crisis, or there could be something that's not like leaving that needs to leave. It's like a bit harsher. For all of the signs, we have this need to like upregulate, to evolve, to take personal agency over our lives. And for you, it could be like really past due. So I'm feeling things like that here. You want to be very cognizant of anything that goes past due. Okay, bills that are past due, debts that are past due, anything that is like a deadline approaching. And anytime you see this, whether this is at like a very obvious physical financial level, or even like, I never got the proper closure with my ex, or I never apologized, or I never, really solved that dietary problem. The energy of debt is something that has to really be paid off here. So this is a bit of a contradiction, I feel, in your energy, whereby you're going to really get it right by the time this concludes. But we want to not be super obstinate. We want to not be super stuck in the previous frameworks, and we want to be able to kind of like move through our day in like an adaptable and flexible manner, rather than kind of getting stuck on tasks, or stuck on memories, or stuck on certain loops. There are kind of like symptoms of regret here, and also possibilities, some like one-on-one challenges. I could see this even as like lawsuits, or any type of battlefront, or some kind of correspondence. Also, it's possible that people that you've had a hard time with before could be like elevating or empowering here. So it's not recommended here to initiate any kind of conflict, especially if you don't know people very well. You might not know about the cards they're holding. It's better to retreat here than to fight losing battles. And you have to like really find appropriate ways for your own anger or your own regrets to now channel and to leave them behind in a more, or I should say less conflictual way. In a positive sense, I find this to be a wonderful time to, get your anger out at the gym, or to find new productive ways to channel anger and rage. That's a lot of it with the South Node in Leo square whatever you have in Taurus. This is going to have a lot to do with pent-up anger and aggression. This is going to have a lot to do also with understanding our humanity and understanding how there's been any misplacement of blame. You'll notice that as like a weird habit here. So like maybe you didn't notice it with certain people from your past, but you'll kind of see it here. It's like, okay, I'm attributing something to the wrong person, or convenient blame, convenient debt practices, trying to pay your way out of certain things that are not monetarily resolvable. For example, this could be a big one, like blaming all your current problems on like an ex, when maybe some of these things predate that person. Watch out for lumping liability into the wrong canisters. So that's something that we have to like really kind of like even the score with here. It's a very, very nice transit for cleaning things up. Okay. Blaming, accountably. Okay. Making sure that you are accounting properly for certain things. Making sure that you understand, when I eat this food, it has this effect on my body. When I drink this, when I consume this type of thing, it does this. Rather than perhaps thinking like, oh, this is something that just makes me feel good, like negative substances or negative habits. Also, just like catharsis in general could be overdone or overblown. And there could also be a need to have like reinforcement from other people, and it might start to fade a little bit here, especially if it's not in the right territory. And that's the way that you can kind of like measure out the accountability thing here, is like, do other people build this up? And then you might want to watch out also for other people just kind of being like a pacifist to you, or a yes person. For example, dating someone who never knew your ex, and this person just like affirms everything that you say about them. Like you're talking about your crazy ex or something, and this person is like, yes, they were so crazy, but they've like never known them. Watch out for this kind of dynamic, because this can create weird karmas and weird energy debts, especially if it is not the correct thing. So like what I'm feeling here, Taurus, is like we kind of need to go to God with it. We need to release some of these things rather than like beating a dead horse, rather than needing, because no one likes to date someone who's always like talking about their ex. No one also wants to really date someone who's got like a debt crisis, or this can like negatively impact your relationships and your marriages when things are like misappropriated or misaccounted. So it's kind of like a time where I feel that I talk about this a lot on some of the recent Patreon content. So it's a great time if you guys are needing to do some work. We all have certain transits where like we've got to do work in our lives. Don't let it discourage you. But I've talked a lot on Patreon about taking certain high-level action with any type of crisis, rather than flailing or holding on to things and kind of trying to disperse the energy where we can. This is where like we try to get our therapist to resolve our financial problem, or we try to get our spouse to resolve something with our ex, or we try to get, some type of substance to make our trauma fade away. So like misplaced solutions, okay? Solving things the wrong way. I know it sounds negative, but I think that it's really nice to get a simpler, more equitable relief in your life. So like, okay, I've got trauma, let me give that to the therapist. Okay, I've got some kind of crux with my ex. Can I just like give this to God, or resolve this with my therapist? Okay, I've got a financial problem. Maybe it's like a bankruptcy, or maybe rather than banging my head against a brick wall, there's some type of relief package, or some kind of maybe I can like cancel out an expensive substance from my life, and put that toward my debt, rather than letting debts compound and also having like substance problems at the same time. So I know that this sounds kind of like tough and negative, but it's not that hard to solve some of this, and the squares from this nodal axis are really gonna like force it. So yeah, also lawsuits are very easy here, okay, but it will resolve, okay, like the lawsuits will resolve the problem as well. It's also very easy to I don't know, like it's kind of harsh, Taurus, but like, for example, if you're relying too much on your spouse, or if you're kind of letting your spouse, or expecting your spouse to channel some of this negativity that maybe a therapist should be paid to channel or something, or maybe you need to be in church about or something like that. Also, like, divorces can happen because it's like the wrong frequency is trying to channel through the channel that can't process it. Oh, so this is like a major learning process during this nodal axis for anybody with a powerful Taurus placement. It's like, what is the appropriate channel for these problems? You have to sometimes reappropriate where the energy is going. Also, is it appropriate for your maybe kidneys and thyroid or endocrine system to be channeling or all of these substances? Maybe it's like trying to put something in your body also that it can't channel. So it's like these negative feedback loops, if you can imagine, like a lot of this happening at once. So this is like where we have to go into our God consciousness, right? This is where we have to take higher level action. This is where we have to sometimes quit things cold turkey, okay? And we have to apologize to our spouse, and we have to get into therapy. We have to get into church. We have to throw certain things away forever. We have to, I don't know, just throw away the Wi-Fi router, throw away the computer or something, because some people have got weird, like computer-based addictions, and it's like zombifying the mental process. And I mean, like, yeah, I'm feeling like you have to take very high-level actions here. If you've got anything that's like a negative feedback loop. And I think that it's like a wake-up call also for all zodiac signs. Like, this is actually something that everyone is struggling with a little bit. It's just most obvious in these signs that have the square. I mean, it would be similar for Scorpio as well. So we want to like really make sure that we are putting the puzzle pieces together right and not forcing certain pieces to fit where they don't. Too much force here is not great. So it's like my 5th cup of coffee a day to force myself to finish the work, or, I'm trying to like force this bill to be paid through borrowing a sum of money that I can't repay in a sensible way. Or I'm like forcing the bill not to be paid, and all of a sudden a few months have passed and multiple lawsuits have been filed against me. So like, just be careful, Taurus. Like, careful about forceful actions and forceful. Also, something here speaks of like autonomy and independence being like pressed in a way that's maybe not sustainable. So maybe we need to build up ourselves in a more powerful way. So again, that's higher level action. That's more saving. That's more better relationships in my life. It's not maybe the anarchy that we think it is. It's actually implementing a certain order onto your life that gives you that authority that you may need to, really make the right choices here. And I feel like through this nodal axis, though, there's a very good opportunity to get things put into the right place to where you have a lot better authority in the future. But there is definitely some work needed for all the fixed signs here with this nodal axis. So moving on. Okay, Gemini. Welcome, Geminis. What do we have? So there is sort of like a Uranian overload here. We got the North Node in Uranus' sign of Aquarius. We got Uranus in your sign. It's not as complicated as the previous two signs. All you have to really do is resize things and scale things down. Can you downsize your life a little bit? Can you reduce the overload? It feels like rewards and rewards and rewards for any Gemini person who can like just scale it down. Okay, I have less things on my plate now. I don't work overtime. I don't have so many items in my house that I can't even fathom, what I even have. I don't have so many draining experiences. I don't have a lot of narcissistic friends anymore. I don't have like a caffeine overload in my body. I don't have an endocrine problem anymore. I only have 1 chronic illness now instead of 3. I only have 2 points over the BMI rather than 4 points, okay? So things reduce, things move down in a very positive way, and you are rewarded for the gravitas that you have through reduction and the compacted way in which you are managing your life. So this is like getting bills off of your table. This is removing any of the death by 1,000 cuts, things going on in your life. This is also just scaling things down. Okay, I have this one app that does all of these things. I have maybe the one email address, the one bank account, and maybe not one, but like rather than 10 of each, or so much overload, so much quantum growth, we're actually paring things down. In fact, the Hadron Collider has turned off as well. I don't know if you guys know, like the CERN, right? So this also indicates for the collective, interesting also with Uranus and Gemini, that we are like pulling things into this more smaller box, like things are in a smaller container, things are better contained as well because of this. Things are not so chaotic. There's not this rapid sequence growth that we would have had all throughout Uranus and Taurus. And this nodal axis supports it as well. Again, you get the trine from the North Node and the sextile from the South Node. Meaning that, groups support this more compact, more amenable, what's the word? Like amenable Gemini. People like it. People like this more digestible persona, or this more kind of like light like a feather. This is coming up in the 2025 year aheads even. Light like a feather, quicksilver version of you. So like look back to 2025, like how were you already starting to integrate this? Because people are going to really start loving it here, okay? I love the fact that you can, move around your life. I love the fact that you can travel. I love the fact that, it's not hard to process who you are. I love the fact that, you're here with me and I understand who you are, and it doesn't take a lot of explanation, or it doesn't take a lot of difficulty to perceive you. It doesn't require a novel or a book to understand your identity. I feel very safe with the fact that you are here with me because of the very aerodynamic way that you are presenting yourself or creating in your life. So like as opposed to like Taurus, if you just heard the previous Taurus reading, there's not this feeling of like overloaded, like debts I can't pay off, non-channeled experiences, things in my body that it can't process. So Taurus people also could learn from you how to kind of like bring this all down into a properly scaled, properly proportioned experience. And if you're a Gemini who perhaps also has a lot of Taurus, which could be possible, you don't have to make this complicated. I love the Marie Kondo spark joy philosophy here. Get anything out of the experience that doesn't spark joy. Get anything that is not like really essential to you out. Because what is also happening here, and you guys might see this, I've already seen this coming in 2025 as well, and 2026. If we can't get the things that don't spark joy out of our lives, what can start happening is the things that do spark joy can start getting like lost and cluttered, and can be lost because there's just like too much to perceive. So everything starts to become a wash, and that's what we don't want. That's what I was kind of saying for Taurus. So like this is in some cases something that we need to really get out ahead of early in this transit. Like try to really sensitize yourself, like dopamine detox, wonderful. Less time with technology, less time with any kind of desensitizing materials, so that you can be very keen on like what you need to keep and what you don't in your life. Very simple and very, very enjoyable time to generate new relationships and to exist around other people, because you will upregulate the vibe of any room that you walk into. So thank you, Geminis. Okay, Cancers. Let's talk about you guys. Even though it's a semi-sextile and a quincunx, right? Yes, quincunx. It's not bad because it's getting 12th and 6th house to, second and 8th house to your nodal axis. Yes, the nodes go backwards. So it's like closing in. It's like closing in on you, and you're getting very close to your nodal return. I suppose it could be hard, but I don't feel it as necessarily negative for you all. I feel it as kind of like this blinking signal or blinking reminder of like who you are, because we're getting this sort of radical redefinition of self-concept with the transit of Jupiter in Cancer and Jupiter in Leo, especially Jupiter into Leo. And of course, again, we get this nodal axis sort of interweaving with the Jupiter transit, which has just also been in your sign as well. So you have this kind of like lingering good luck and lingering understanding of what you're holding in your life and how it can best serve your experience. I think there could be a little bit of an energy deficit. You might have like a very large bill to pay at the outset of this transit, or you may have to like really rethink how you're investing, okay, your time, money, energy. Maybe it's like a little bit too risky or a little bit too overgrown. I feel like your garden of life could be just like booming, okay? Maybe you've planted some kind of seed that is like really abundant, and maybe there could be some synthetic elements to it. So like synthetic growth models, businesses with like a synthetic kind of curve, or even investments that are like very difficult to predict or very difficult to understand. And I feel that by September or October of 2026, you have to like really reappropriate along most of the lines of your life so that you can properly scale and properly examine what you actually have, because we do not want any kind of like gambling mentality here. For example, gambling on the market, or perhaps working with debt in a way that is not extremely precise. So it's kind of good to bring yourself back to zero. So to bulk pay things, understanding where you truly are in your life, understanding where you're maybe overdoing certain things, because it's not quite as harsh as it was for Taurus, for example, but there is this kind of feeling of like I'm processing certain things that I maybe can't, or I'm like paying for things that I maybe don't need, or my body or health is paying for circumstances that I actually don't have to put myself in. So maybe we don't have to put ourselves into certain situations anymore. Maybe we don't have to eat certain things or drink certain things anymore. Maybe we don't have to participate in certain like social media experiences anymore. Maybe we need less time with certain family members or certain friend groups. Maybe we have to like really pull out of certain things. So maybe there are certain like investments we have to pull out of. Maybe there are certain payments we have to pull out of, so that we can like get our own oxygen mask on. Because yes, the nodes will be in your sign, obviously, in what, like late 2027 or into 2028. Obviously, Uranus will be moving towards your sign as well. So we have like a lot of things in the astrology, you guys, that's like coming for you, okay? So like it's not yet, but like eventually we're going to have the nodal axis on your axis. We're going to have Uranus in your sign within like the next 6 or 7 years. So there's this timeline where it's like, I've got to make sure that I don't make a major mistake. Okay, I've got to make sure that I'm not risking too much. I've got to make sure I don't, for example, develop a chronic illness from overdoing myself or just like pushing too hard. Because you just want to make sure you're in a good position and a good stature, especially by the ending part of this decade, which perhaps still feels like a long time away. But I'll remind you guys that, you know, this is now mid-2026 that we're in. So 4 years ago would have been 2022. 4 years from now will be 2030. So if you can kind of recollect like where you were even in 2022, well, with the same amount of time passing, we'll be there. So we want to make sure that we are building in a way that is honoring the fact that we need a lot of stature, standing, and powerful position by then. So we do want to set out very powerful short and medium term goals. And I think that we really have to step into self-love, Cancer, like take it to another level. Are you giving your body what it needs? Are you in a healthy environment? Are you outside of any like emotionally abusive or psychologically abusive constructs? And take it to this very like simple place of self-preservation. And from there, I would reappropriate anything that's like financial or relationship based. And then I would let yourself kind of like congeal in that environment and let the healing take place. And then you can like assert in a more powerful way. Okay, moving on to Leo. Okay, hello Leos. Very interesting energy coming up for you all. We've got a little bit of a mixed bag of experiences coming up here. As I was meditating for your portion of the reading, I felt quite a bit of dread and quite a bit of like existential heaviness. Maybe you have certain burdens. Usually, yes, the South Node in your sign means that it's a very important chapter of your life happening, and there could be a kind of make or break scenario that you are involved in, something that could even, I don't know, have to do with like critical alliances, critical connections, critical infrastructure of some kind, and your decision-making capacity will be the main highlight here, with the North Node also obviously opposing you. You have to be very focused on a North Star. You have to be very focused on what exactly it is that you're trying to achieve. Very good here to work on vision. Okay, like what am I trying to get out of this? It could be problematic to just be putting one foot in front of the other, or doing, a sequence of events that other people might consider to be responsible, or, doing this worked for another person, so I'm going to, repeat something that worked for someone else. If you can, really try to find a vision or an objective that you can sensibly work toward, and also understand, from the positive side of this transit, what is the best outcome? Like, what are all of the possible goals in front of me, and which is the most powerful, which is the most essential? Try to watch out for getting stuck in a kind of like least potential loop. So like, this works, but it's not great. So like, lukewarm is not good for this transit, especially with Jupiter. Also in your sign, it feels that you really do have to keep the heat turned up on your experience, and you have to really embody the most potential filled element of it. This is also very nice for like physical glow up. Okay, anything that glows. Okay, South Node in Leo, Jupiter in Leo. Any type, again, of like North Star, glow up health routine, increasing your financial abundance, of course. Yes, glowing experiences that are reinforced with a powerful financial architecture. Glowing recommendations, references, real people who also glow around you. So like other successful people, peerage, colleagues, any kind of powerful backing is also associated with this transit. But you have to like know also when it is at its max as well. So like, this business is maxed out, this spending is maxed out, my energy for the day is maxed out, and I should probably go to sleep or have a nutritious meal, so that I can make sure that I'm not like faded tomorrow. Taking a look at things that fade you. Okay, so fading, dimming, any kind of shadowy expression needs to be either revised, reworked, or set aside so that you can glow. Because if there's something that's like too tired, too like dark circles around the eyes, avoiding the sun too much, anything that feels kind of pale or restricted or too nocturnal, too exhaustive, will be a bit of a hurdle, because you may find that just being in your own luminosity will get you better physical results than overworking or exhausting yourself, for example, for a paycheck, or overexhausting yourself for a perceived idea or a perceived outcome. So yes, Leos, am I telling you that this is a period of time where you will get better results by maybe luxuriating a bit, rejuvenating, replenishing, building up your own health? Yes, 2025 already kind of put you there with the Jupiter in Cancer and all that water energy, and also the snake year that we had as well, already kind of foreshadowed this, but it should actually go to another level of self-preservation, self-replenishment, and placing health and personal glow at the center of your choice making. So yeah, sleep, eating, exercise, all of that feels to me more important than I'm trying to say then certain career results, but it's also that too. But you might notice that things with like your career or your prestige or standing now has more to do with certain associations or certain higher level choices rather than rote repetition, rather than grinding so hard. So yes, there is something of hidden power that you have to bring certain scenarios to climax based on higher level actions, as well as personal self health and growth of personal glow, which will just really wipe the floor with any competition and bring about a lot of dividends for you. But you will have to be very cautious about overdoing things or pushing too hard, especially in just a very physical sense, because an exhausted Leo or a certain like tendency to like stare off into space or not be present could also be harmful here, or to lose track of certain things because you were grinding so hard somewhere else, or because in some cases because of laziness or something like that too. It could be the polar opposite as well. This is about balanced work. This is about balanced objectives, precise and strategic objectives. It's not about all or nothing, 0 or 100 experiences. This is about striking the balance. This is about congealing and radically redefining your personal self-concept in conjunction, right, with the Jupiter and Leo transit, and also the sextile to Uranus and Gemini. And I feel like that would be a great strategy here as well. Leo's is like paring things down, smaller, more efficient choices, not spending too much time on things, drawing things down so that you have more time to work on personal health. Okay, moving on to Virgo. Okay, hi Virgos. I'm just writing down your timestamp. Okay, this is something of a test of endearing friendship. I feel this transit, meaning like you may need to rely on people more because we have the semi-sextile in the quincunx, which is usually a period of time where you need to rely on previously built or previously fostered infrastructure, people, even family concepts in order to kind of hold you up as you let certain things pass. So if you have a lot of Leo in your chart, you could kind of pull from what I just said for them about making sure you're not overdoing, giving yourself time to glow up, to luxuriate a bit more, to replenish. But if you don't have as much Leo in your chart, it may take on a bit more of a wait it out or bide your time energy here. This is a nice time to just go on night drives, okay? This is a nice time for like rotations, okay? So like not having to work a full shift, like rotating out with people. Also in a sense, like rotating into other territories or getting out of things if they feel over applied. To me, there's a feeling here of, I don't know, for those of you who've ever like made jewelry, once you like work the metal too much, it becomes not what you want, or it can even break off. So like, where have you over applied energy, overspoken, overdone, pushed too hard? Withdrawal is really good here. And also cultivating more enduring and endearing relationships. So we have to think about things that stand the test of time. We have to think about things that are not fleeting. Okay, so this is very much not about honeymoon romances that last a short amount of time and leave you scrambling or leave you traumatized at the therapist's office because the person ghosted you or something. All of that really has to go, and we have to build and structure more lasting relationships and more lasting personal independent infrastructure. The two usually go hand in hand. So I like this feeling though, with Uranus now in a mutable sign, also with a yod to you guys from Saturn and Neptune and Aries and the North Node in Aquarius. I like this feeling of you getting out of things to get into things, meaning like, just leaving and letting people recognize maybe that you aren't the problem. Sometimes absence is a powerful thing with this type of angular setup with the nodal axis. Sometimes you can be like a foil or a fall guy, and you need to get out of the equation so that that's not possible, or that you're not a candidate for that. Look into like whatever you're a candidate for here. It's not that it's bad, but you can really be like singled out, or you can really be pinpointed in a positive way too. It's not all negative, but it does feel like there's a degree of risk of any type of like pinpointing or any kind of like pointing out of a Virgo person here. Which is why it's like nice to be places that are less crowded, or it's nice to, night drives, going to places when it's the off season. Okay. If you can imagine like, tourism hubs, like going there during the time of year where it's less crowded could be interesting and spiritual, or, even beginning to embrace like a seasonal approach with your house. So maybe you're not always at your house. Maybe you go other places, or maybe you summer elsewhere. Maybe you have a specific city that you enjoy and there's a connecting flight, and maybe you don't make it seem like it's like impossible to go there, and maybe you start going there more often. So I just feel like you have to get more airy and compact with your travel, or with your sense of being rooted down or placed in any given situation. And I feel also that you may need more people in different places. So having a growing friendship in a foreign area, or in a different city, or a different town, or a different university, whatever it is, might end up being the most powerful decision you made. It's like things go south at this university. Oh, well, I have a really nice connection at an even better university in a city that I like. That's opportune, isn't it? So this is about contingency. This is not about getting scared that you're wrapped up in the wrong thing. This is not about worrying that your reality is going to implode, or getting into any type of like doom casting or anything like that. But I do feel that you guys have to be prepared almost to drastically change things in your life. And I feel that anything where like things run back a really long time, so like careers you've worked at for a long time, towns, areas, or homes that you've lived in for a long time, could be frustrated and needing to pinpoint like the source of the problem, and you might and might not be that. But it's nice sometimes to step away from certain things, I feel here. It's a great time for a sabbatical. It's a great time for anonymity, and it's also a really, really powerful time. Sure, to go to court, or to actually go through a conflict of being singled out and be victorious, but sometimes we enjoy here to think about what we even have to go through in the first place or not. Okay, moving on, Libra. Okay, hi Libras. Okay, entirely new calculus, entirely new resources, and entirely new grid of harmony. So you are not like operating your brain and mindset in the same way. So you have a different way of coming to conclusions here. You have a different formula that you are operating your life on. Maybe you're not so focused on money or career. Maybe you're not caring so much about long-term structures, and maybe this is a nice time to sort of like flesh out who you've been evolving into for a long time. So personal evolution, personal embodiment, enjoying the way that you are opening doors for yourself. So like this is not a period of time, again, kind of like Virgo, where you want to just like exist in the same places. I also remind you, you have Saturn and Neptune on your axis here. And it's very good here to lean into Jupiter in Leo, to lean into Uranus in Gemini, as well as this nodal axis. So there are like new integrated groups I feel that you can fit into. So like new friend groups, new social groups. The North Node trine makes it very compatible with purpose. So like new teams, new entrepreneurial endeavors. Very nice. And then also the South Node in Leo giving a sextile to you gives you this feeling of new motivation. It's like a new lust for life, or a new orientation toward thriving. This can also just be warmer environments, okay? So like less sterile people. If you've lived in a very cold environment, you could be moving to somewhere warmer. And you could have some type of like body homeostasis that gets reignited through these changes. So maybe something has been off, like a depression or some kind of nervous system imbalance, and through some type of like higher level change that you make, this could just like overnight like click into place. And then this could be like an entire sequence of, other things then clicking into place. So that is what I like the most for you, Libra. I like this feeling of compounded positivity. So like I make one higher level choice, and then I keep pressing in more positive areas, and I get further and further away from addictive cycles or from overthinking, over-talking, having to spend all that time in like blah blah mode. Okay, that's a big problem for a lot of Libras here, talking into the void. Okay, so like that could be something that you don't feel the need to have anymore. That could be something that you can kind of like architect like a body of work around, or you can architect some kind of greater lens of frivolity to experience yourself through. But I like a better idea of physical endearing compatibility with other people here, actually. So are there actually real enduring or endearing relationships? That's something this nodal axis is going to be asking all of us. Who endures your job that's so consuming? Okay, like does the relationship with your partner or spouse become destabilized while you're working, for example, or while you're talking so much to other people? And do you feel like you have to pick up the pieces when you finish up with that? And then does that kind of like drain you from your job? So there are these things that are kind of like pulling you apart, I feel, or these things that are like kind of like a yo-yo effect. We're going in like different directions. So yes, this may be a time where a new relationship is required. For example, someone who works in a similar industry who can actually possibly perceive of what it is that you're trying to take on in your life. If anyone can, I'm not sure. So like that might be better here to consider growing something with the proper fertilizer, or growing something with the proper idea, rather than forcing so many things to work together in a sort of piecemeal kind of way. So yeah, this is a beautiful, beautiful transit for the creation of consolidating networks or entities. So combining all of your property together into like one trust, forming a greater team in your business. This could also, for some of you, be like forming a union, or forming some kind of like greater communicative network that may gain broader power or capacity over time. But there is a question of how your personal life intertwines with these types of efforts. So this is where like the new formulas, the new calculus, and a new need for harmony comes in. But I think one of the biggest questions for Libras, regardless of any of this, is like, can you relinquish this sort of repetitive or looping need to approve of other people or not? So any type of like judgment or any kind of like filtration process that is like projected on other people is also reworking itself under this transit. And I feel like your filtration is turned up really high, which is good. Okay, this is like a period of time, especially over these last few years, where we've had so much like darkness and corruption, disease. So we have to be very cognizant of who we're, allowing into our life. We have to be very thoughtful about what we're mixing with or what we're close to, But I'm actually feeling like as we move into this next paradigm, that a lot of energy for Libra could be like wasted on, say you're like scrolling through social media and you have to like really perceive who these people are or what they're doing, or you could have a tendency also to, what's the right word? What is the right word to articulate this, Libras? It's almost like overdosing the meaning of certain things which are not actually tied to you. So overthinking certain externalized people or things, either on social media or I suppose in your life. And you may need to not spend so much on that here. You may need to pull back into your sphere of reference or your cone of reality in order to have decisions come more so from you and from your own knowledge and wisdom, rather than relying on external parties to create consciousness for you or to sort of like reflect off of you. So this can be a realization that like, we're too empty. Things are hollowed out, so we're looking for other egos or other people or experiences to inform our decision making, which is something that can be a shadow for Libra, right, as one of the inanimate or the only inanimate archetype in the zodiac. So this is about filling your own cup, Libra. This is about letting something naturally yours grow inside. This is about not feeling the need to approve of other people or not, especially people who are not actually in your life. And this is very much about almost like, it's like this biological, psychological interweaving of what gives a feeling, a sensory feeling of fulfillment, without feeling like there's a judgment on other people to be rendered. Okay, so can you subtract like social media entirely for a while and see what happens? That could be prudent. And it's interesting here for many people to see that they have like a shell of an existence. So like I've got all of these beautiful images on the phone or the computer, or I've got these kind of like virtualized lives, communities, or experiences. But this could be kind of like a shell that is beautiful. What is inside? And how reliant is it on this? It's good to kind of like measure that up, because the South Node in Leo will really help you to bring about like true internal individualized growth and fertility that isn't reliant on some type of external shell. And through that, you have much more authority, because I feel that you will be less distracted. Okay, moving on, Scorpio. Okay, hello Scorpios. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Okay, so I would definitely recommend listening to the Taurus segment, because that could also be something that comes up for you, as it is the same angle that Taurus is having. We have, of course, the double square, the T-square, for you happening here. And because Scorpio tends to be much more focused on beneath the surface, or, sort of nocturnal events and experiences, you may not allow certain things to come to quite the head that it was for Taurus, but there are still the same considerations to be made about that. Okay, so you have to like really have the appropriate infrastructure to channel certain things now. If you feel that your body or muscular system is not quite right for your health, it's good to have like a gym infrastructure or some kind of solution for that, rather than getting frustrated or allowing certain things to continue permeating in a negative way. Also, yes, if there's any like pent up rage or any pent up energy in any way, you'll have to be very thoughtful, like right at the outset of this transit, about how this can be appropriately channeled. You may also have many, many, many decisions on your table. And I do feel that there is unexpected authority for you here. South Node in Leo for a Scorpio is, while I've compared to Taurus, very different than for a Taurus. So South Node in Leo for Scorpio is like almost like having a level of authority that you don't even want to have. Okay, so being faced with some kind of like existential crisis as someone who can actually affect it, and then having to sometimes carry the burden of being in that position. This is also, though, sometimes where there can be a character clash. So you have to kind of do some internal work, I feel, during this transit about like how much am I willing to have character clash in my life. So you can have a certain like maybe ego identity evolution that's trying to happen at the same time as you're really having to express your persona, or you're having to express in some way something that could feel a bit outdated for you. So it's very good here to bring things up to date, to allow evolution to happen. You may need to be a bit of a busy bee under this transit, which is a little bit challenging. And I suppose this sort of illustrates the nature of the T-square, whereby, for example, with Leo, I was talking about how it's so important for them to relax and to kind of luxuriate and to allow their own personal inner glow to not be diverted by any kind of overwork or any kind of like, I'm too busy to focus on myself. But for you, there is that element as well, while at the same time you have to keep things really moving. So that's, I think, the main challenge of this transit is it's like I've got to focus on health and glow, and I've got to make sure that I am giving myself all the sleep and nutrition and appropriate, personal body health-oriented progress. But at the same time, for Scorpio, there is simultaneously a lot to work on at the same time. So you may have to be upkeeping a business. You may have multiple projects going on at once. You may have to really think at the outset of this transit as to a good solution to accomplish all of this, like better leverage, okay? Because, I'm not feeling like you have not quite the same context where just like resting it off or getting to the spa or any of these things that kind of show you like withdrawing or not really acting. That's not going to do the same thing for you that it will for Leo, yet it is still indicated at the same time. So again, here we are in the T-square. You've got something important on your plate. You've got something critical to get done. You've got to be moving. You're the only one who can do it. You're the only person with the authority. And I think that it's nice to maybe create some new self-talk around having this kind of executive capacity, or to give yourself a lot of meaning for all of these things on your plate, or for all of these different hoops that you're having to jump through. Yet at the same time, there is a need for comfort, and there is a need for having less like arduous mundanity. Okay, so like less things that, the to-do list that never ends, very 6th house Virgo energy. We just had the South Node in Virgo, which would have sextiled you, and hopefully it's kind of helped you to get many things in order so that you don't have to, struggle as much anymore. But yes, there will be many, many things under this transit that test your resolve and also require you to hold some type of greater burden in a way that is also equitable, or in a way that is also compatible with the needs of other people. So it does feel like a strong growth in resolve, relevance, a strong growth in maybe community connection, or some kind of greater narrative or greater problem could be something that you can really connect with through this alchemy, but it's maybe not going to be easy. This also to me feels kind of like when someone has been out of the gym for a very long time, but really goes hardcore into correcting this. It feels kind of like when someone is running a business all by themselves. Okay, it feels also like rewards when these types of things are successful, and this sort of self-expression that evolves your independence to a level where you just don't have to worry about certain things anymore either. I do feel like there's a question about relationships and persona and ego, though, which could just be kind of like coalescing and trying to like develop itself into something during this transit. So I think that as it goes for making new connections with other people, meeting new people, it could be challenging from the perspective that you could be somewhat difficult to perceive or difficult to digest by other people because of these squares. So it's kind of like holding different energies at the same time. So if you're meeting new people, or if you're dating or anything like that, it would have to be someone who is also very adaptable and very okay with holding different goals, different missions, different personas at the same time. And I feel like for some of you, I don't know, maybe like a personal assistant is in order. Maybe you've got to like really have a lot of leverage and utility and like purchasing power to do all of this. Or you can like scrape certain things off your plate as well and slow down. It's kind of up to you. But I would definitely put a lot of energy and consideration into peace building, kindness, and humility. Because I also think that there's a lot of risk maybe in having so many developing critical things at the same time. So you kind of have to sometimes bide or keep, I'm not going to say like keep under the radar or keeping your head down, because that would not be correct with the 5th and 11th house axis of the nodes for anyone. This is a time of expression. This is a time of being seen. This is a time of showing the world like who we've become for everybody. And for you, you may have to be very cautious with it, just because of how critical certain outcomes could feel. And it's always better to have allies instead of the opposite, isn't it? So yes, let's move on to Sagittarius. Okay, Sag. Very, very nice energy here. You are one of my favorites for this specific transit. You don't really have a lot to worry about. A lot of the pieces are already set. The popularity metric feels really good. I don't feel like there's much reason to worry about people going against you. I mean, if I'm thinking about it, trying to find some kind of shadow, I feel like maybe, sure, there could be like a jealousy, envy thing, but also maybe not. Like maybe people understand your struggles better now. Maybe people understand your narrative and persona better, to the extent that you have some degree of a balanced projection that you can put forward. That resolves some of the gaps in your history or resolves some of the previous blind spots that you were working on. I feel kind of like you've been collecting a lot of pieces. I feel that there's a feeling of holding many pieces, holding many cards. And this brings about certainly the higher odds for a favorable, nice outcome. Though it does feel like you may have to play a few cards, or you may have to put certain pieces together to make this all work. So it's kind of like a can you have your cake and eat it too kind of thing. It's like, yes, I've got to spend some of my money in order to solve this problem. And that may mean that, you know, the feeling of having that sum or the feeling of having that card won't exist anymore, but it will bring about some kind of circumstance or scenario that will be much more preferable. Try to think about preferable circumstances during this transit, and try to think about sensible kind of square ways that that can come about, meaning very simple math like 2 + 2 = 4. I need 4. Where are the 2 2s? Okay, so it's not wanting to be a very complex algebra equation here, as it may have been when Saturn and Neptune were in Pisces. Now it is a very simple math. Okay, north node in sextile to you and south node in trine, in fire and air. This is like simple elemental math, like a little bit more air will make the fire grow. Adding a little bit of water to the fire is going to decrease it. Do you want the fire to grow, or do you want it to decrease? What do you want to happen? I feel like this is the biggest issue of this transit, is like really having a non kind of attention deficit perspective about what you're going for or what you're trying to achieve, so that you can create simple sequences in order to achieve that. So yeah, this is cause and effect, sequential thinking. Also consider such things as like chain of events or like domino scenarios. So if you push one thing over, is it going to cause like a major chain of events, or is there a simple, easier path to take? It's nice to bypass conflict here. It's nice to also sometimes do things for cheaper. So maybe this exact thing that you're wanting to buy is cheaper from a different distributor. Maybe it's half the price. Maybe visiting this place at a different time of year is half or a quarter of the price. Perhaps also creative DIY solutions could be favorable for some of you here, like rather than... It kind of feels like corner cutting to me as well, so be careful with it. But like some of you can kind of, okay? So maybe it's not ever prudent to want to quote unquote cut corners, but some Sagittarians, for instance, you know, they can. It's like you can put, I don't know, for example, like throw rugs down over these floors rather than ripping everything out and redoing the subfloor and putting down new hardwood floors and then the same exact nice area rugs on top of the new hard floor. Okay, you can just throw down the area rugs and it's fine, okay? And you've saved like thousands and thousands of dollars. Or you can oil these hinges rather than replacing the door, okay? You can replace some of the screen on some kind of like broken windowsill rather than redoing the entire window. You catch my drift, okay? So a more components-based strategy could be favorable for you, especially if you have a lot of things. And I am feeling that there's kind of like an empire of focus. So many different moving parts, many different expenditures, many different projects perhaps at once. And I'm also feeling like you can't get too stagnant with stuff. Like you need movement. You need to get through this stuff. You don't want to get stuck in interim phases, for example. You don't want to get stuck in limbo. You don't want to stretch out temporary accommodations longer than they need to go. So yeah, you want to make sure that you have all of the propelling factors, all of the currency, all of the energy to keep things moving at a nice, steady, kind of slow burn pace. Try to keep that slow burn marathon mentality in mind too, because there could be a temptation under this transit with the South Node trining you to have these like grand fireworks experiences. But with the South Node trining you, to me, it indicates more of like a slow burn on the inside. This is great for that tiny calorie deficit that really reforms your body in a tiny way, creating, for example, a metabolic kind of slow burn. If you have any type of very arduous goal, like running some type of high-level business or some type of material transformation in your life, take it slowly, but keep it fully current and continuous. Okay, try to keep things moving. Try to watch out for... Okay, interesting, Sagittarius. This is very different than the last few years because there was a lot of this kind of like peak and valley thing for you guys, like pushing really hard, then resting for a long time, cramming, then doing nothing. Okay, this is more about evening out and having this sort of consistent, continuous slow burn, which means that you need to do like a little bit less in your buildup, okay? Or you can't start your marathon with a sprint, okay? Or you can't expect for a sprint to ever be continuous. So how can you stabilize? So I love this, like, inspirational stabilizing factors, stabilization funds, some kind of interim plan or some kind of provisional construct in your life that permits you to just work your way straight through some of these adversities and not get held up in them, is the best way to thrive and really make progress under this transit. You really don't want things to get super cold. You don't want also to underfund your life. That's interesting. You're the only sign I've really felt that strongly for. This transit may require greater funding. This transit may require greater investment. But again, you would have to be very stabilized with it. So it's like, make sure that you're not burning through the misapplied philosophy that I need a lot of funding. Okay, so like, because I know I need a lot of funding, I'm just going to like have blank checks out all the time, or I'm just going to do infinite credit card spending or something. And, you know, consider this also with like your energy or your rest or your attention or focus. You have to have a lot of it under this transit, and you will have an increase in motivation. You will have an increase in vision as well with the South Node trine. And you will also have support from groups too. So you're very well placed under this transit, but just keep in mind the need for a sort of like stabilized, sort of increased energy output, as well as funding, and then being able to sustain that for probably like, I don't know, upwards of like 2 years for some of you, but it kind of depends on like what your goal is. It would be good to understand what the finish line looks like. Okay, moving on. Capricorn, let me write down your timestamp. Okay, Capricorns. Interesting. Nice little semi-sextile quincunx angle coming in for you guys. Challenging, but giving you a lot of new perspectives and new lenses on life. I'm seeing quite a sizable routine change for you, and there's a very different perspective about like what you're needing to set your sights on, what you're needing to accomplish, which can't be the same loops or routines as before. So really zeroing in on anything that has been looping in your life. Do you like it? Is there a need for a bit of a shakeup with your repetition? Okay, like what are you grinding? So are you working really hard on like an online business? Are you working really hard at the gym? Are you working really hard trying to hold your family together or trying to stop some type of negative circumstance from happening to someone around you? Well, you could feel it under this transit. You could feel the weight of these kinds of burdens in a different way with the Aquarius Leo nodal axis, because this nodal axis for everyone is not so much about holding other people up. It's not so much about being that sort of, I suppose, stereotypically responsible, conventional figure. This really is more so about branching into a different drive or a different motivational grid. And when I say different, not just a different one, but like one that is more you and definitely pursues your own interests. So yeah, I feel like there's got to be more time devoted to you, or more time devoted to your health, your body. And if that's not the issue, perhaps more time on hobbies or things that you enjoy, things that bring you sort of like unquestionable positive feelings, because you might notice that there is a bit of a deficit of some of these nice feelings, or some of these simple joys, some of these, also groups that relate to happiness. If you, for example, have been in any type of like heavy group setting, so like hospitals, courts, any kind of dysfunctional family environments, you will really need under this transit to boost your fun, okay, to boost your sense of spontaneity and joy. And really, I feel like there's a lot of room to do this, and a lot of room to not feel like you are getting behind elsewhere, or to not give yourself a hard time about choosing to enjoy the avenue that you're on, or choosing to select a path that makes you feel better rather than is just, quote unquote, responsible or feasible or perhaps economical. It's not a bad transit for some kind of distraction as well. So I don't usually recommend this ever, and you'd have to be very, very cognizant of how you work with this energy. But like an unexpected romance or an unexpected friendship, or someone who just shows up unannounced sometimes, someone who calls you out of the blue. You may find this as a disruption. You may find this to be, socially ungraceful, or just something that like, why are these people distracting me from my work session? I need to get this done. I need to make this money. I need to figure some of these things in my life out, and they're distracting me. But you might find that these are some of the best moments for you during this time, like the spontaneity factor, or maybe you needed to get away from the computer for a while, or maybe you needed to spend some of the money rather than focus so much on earning it. Or maybe you've got to stop paying other people's bills, or stop, doing other people's work for them, and kind of let them do their own stuff while you go off on vacation, or maybe take a break. And maybe this has been the answer for a long time. But, it's not really the same degree of need put upon you as the previous axis of Pisces and Virgo. That was a serious time in a Capricorn's life, with a lot of make or break challenges and life-changing directions of momentum. And this is thankfully more of a load off for you guys, and it's not so much about that stuff now. So I think the test is like getting out of that previous muscle memory and accepting that you're in less of a pressurized time, and taking that fully and enjoying the rest of it. So yes, simple, easy, wonderful Capricorn. Okay, moving on to Aquarius. Okay, Aquarius, this is your nodal axis. Welcome. Let's talk about it. So, huge increase in purpose, huge expansion of access to avenues of progress, and there's this kind of like relentless feeling I am getting about like how you feel motivated to achieve certain things here. And I think that this is a wonderful time to just joyfully step on to newer, more motivational paths, as you might see that something has got to be mixed up in your life. The same old conventional or traditional paths may not really have much joy to offer you, and actually kind of like Capricorn as well. I'm getting this very strong feeling that there is a very strong need to find things that bring you a really strong sense of joy, love, and appreciation. This could be like new hobbies. This could be new relationships, or some kind of something you've wanted to do for a very long time. Yeah, this is the time for that. So if you guys have been kind of like holding back, or if you've been saving up or operating on any kind of premise that is like, you know, eventually I'm going to make the move, or eventually I'm going to try this, or eventually I'm going to go back to school, or reach into that industry, or start that social media channel. This might be a really nice time to do one of these big things. Okay, this might be a really powerful time to step into a greater realm of creation, or a greater expanse of life force energy application. And I'm feeling like there's a zeal coming in. There's kind of like a new rush of capacity or aspiration coming into the Aquarius energy that just makes me feel really excited, actually, as there's definitely a captivating energy here that, of course, with the North Node being in your sign, that none of the other signs will have in the same dose that you guys have. So this is wonderful for any type of like creative entrepreneurial endeavors. Yes, I mean, with Uranus being in Gemini, trine the North Node in Aquarius, with the gravitas and motivation and self-composure that the South Node in Leo also offers, being opposite you. What a wonderful time to just get into a project. What a wonderful time to develop something, to produce something, to fund something, to not be in something just for like wealth or gain or some kind of prestige or status, but to really just be all about what you're creating. So what would be hard with this transit would be feeling lackadaisical about what you're creating, or having any kind of like burnout or industry boredom, lukewarm scenarios, not really being into it, not really being behind it, you know. So I think the main thing to get out in front of with this transit, Aquarius, is like making sure you're behind yourself. Sometimes you might need to really remind yourself of what you've accomplished. Sometimes you might need to also understand the mission, the why factor behind what you're doing, behind what your company, your industry, or project is doing, okay? And you might really need to like get into it or get out of it, okay? Watch out for like lingering and things you don't really like. Watch out for, not being into things but participating. That would be something that I would really want to see a line of demarcation as you enter this transit to complete. And then also any kind of like cynical detachment, as that could be a shadow of the North Node in Aquarius, right? Aquarius is the sign of detachment. It's the sign of sort of more of a robotic thing, right? I always say like Aquarius is like robots and Pisces is like aliens. Okay, robots and aliens. We kind of leave the human condition in the sign of Capricorn. So that definitely makes me think of AI. It makes me think of all this tech build out. It makes me think of the stock market. So like, yeah, there's all of that stuff that could be opportune for some of you. But, you know, if I'm thinking more about just human elements, or, your life and your humanity, it feels to me that you need a purposeful mission. It feels to me like you need to reassess, perhaps, especially if you're struggling here, like reassessing, is the current environment or the current output really who I am right now? Am I really behind it? Do I need to seek or explore or find more of an enduring purpose for my own personal growth process? Do I need to transition into something else? Am I in the most evolved position of my form? And, this can all be kind of exhausting. This can all be kind of like, is this insatiable? Is this, reaching for something that is not yet here. Well, when the North Node's in your sign, there's going to be a little bit of that. There's going to be a little bit of like reaching out, especially in a fire horse year. I'm worried about it if we're feeling too comfortable with what's already here. It's kind of like an indication of depression or some kind of process of giving up on ourselves. So this is actually a time to reach, especially for you, especially with the North Node there. So don't worry about a little bit of risk, a little bit of well-calculated strategic risk, and a little bit of moving from point A to point B. And then I would also say reminding yourself of your humanity, not feeling the need to dehumanize yourself or demean your or anyone else's experience. In fact, I would say that there's a need to actually find more meaning, okay? Maybe you've demeaned certain relationships or certain difficulties in order to cope or in order to not get too wrapped up or consumed by things you can't control. But here you might need to actually understand, what, that person did mean a lot to me. Or, I actually have been going through burnout with my business, but I actually understand that this business is something that is deeply meaningful to me, and I have to reconcile all of this now. So it is about complex reconciliation. Okay, I love that, complex reconciliation, and kind of understanding how like you can love something but also struggle with it. You can break up with someone and still carry meaning for them. We don't have to demean our ex. We don't have to go around with all that my ex is crazy stuff, or that person was just not who I thought they were. We don't have to go around saying like, I don't like what I created or I don't like what I involved myself in, because that's sort of like a self-betrayal. So yeah, this is like really where the tender point is, Aquarius. It's like, I've got to really cherish my previous choices. I can learn from them. I can see my mistakes, but I also can't keep my hand held to the stove. I can't continue to participate in things that I feel are truly not worth my time. But I also can't demean, the things that were truly special, even if they're no longer interconnected with me. So there's all of this kind of coming to terms with the complexity of your story and growing through it. And this is all very North Node in Aquarius. And through that, the ability to step out of a lot and either really step into growing what you already have or consider some new horizons. So thank you, Aquarius. Okay, Pisces, last but not least, we are talking about the North Node in Aquarius, South Node in Leo for you in this transit throughout 2026 and most of 2027. So what's going on here, Pisces? It's a very fragile, I don't know if that's the right word. It's a very sort of specialized and important, serious point of your development. I feel we've just had Saturn and Neptune be in your sign. We've had a 20-25-year cycle, which would have been probably some degree of a life climax for you all. Of course, we just had the North Node in your sign, which was a lot of pressure and a lot of sort of make or break, in some cases, life or death scenarios. So like now we are moving past that, which I think is very good. I think that that is a relief by definition. But I also think that there is a lot of aftercare needed, okay? I would say that that's your key word for this transit. It feels to me like recovery. It feels to me like some type of rehab or rehabilitation process. It feels to me like ensuring that you're not continuing to put unnecessary pressure onto anything, especially if you have any kind of injury or if you have any kind of like post-traumatic stress or any kind of, anything relating to chronic illness, stress, injury, anything that is like overdoing, overburned experiences should be something that you really know so clearly that you're not playing with at this point, or that it is behind you. So if you had any struggles building the right kind of boundaries during Saturn and Pisces, many Pisces either had like too weak or too flimsy of boundaries, too poetic boundaries, or in some cases also with Saturn, they're like too harsh boundaries to where it was like isolating, or you might have hurt people accidentally or without, meaning to, through, blocking or, just kind of enforcing boundaries, perhaps sometimes with the wrong people instead of the right people. So if you've had anything like that, Now we have to really begin to learn and process and get this right, which will not be that hard here. I enjoy it when especially the North Node goes into a semi-sextile, because it feels to me like pressure goes off. So the boundaries shouldn't be as complicated to figure out here. It should be a simpler boundary regime. Also, there should be less disputes or less conflict orientation. I mean, unless you've got a lot in Aries as well, then obviously having Saturn there now could bring that about, as that has continued in that form. But, you know, I'm feeling as I'm getting into your energy, it's just different than all the other 11 signs that I've already done. And it's much more relaxed. It's much more accepting of the facts. As I notice now that I have all these others behind me in hindsight, that I'm seeing that sometimes we're not okay with the facts. Sometimes we want to earn more money when we're already squeezing blood out of a turnip. Sometimes we want to work overtime when our body must sleep. Sometimes we want to believe certain things about people from our past that are romanticized or out of time. So like, this is not what's happening to you though. It's very realistic, and it's very accepting of, you know, the fact that someone did betray you, or the fact that, you know, you chose to leave certain circumstances and now it's not really accessible, or, you know, you now have the ability to recover because it's not accessible. So there's a lot of understanding the physicality of the experience. There's a lot of choosing to embody the positives of more independence within your day. So like maybe some Pisces have a lot more time on their hands, and maybe you need to sleep more. Maybe you need to enjoy your day more. Maybe you need something to be less pressurized. Maybe this isn't about jobs. Maybe this isn't about, for some of you it is. It's very different for different Pisces, because we were in such a abstract energy in the past here with Saturn and Neptune, so it's kind of difficult to prescribe a blanket statement for you all. But there's something of a previous dream fading as well with the North Node leaving Pisces, right? So it's easy here also to not want the things that you used to want. It's easy to wake up here also, and it's so good to be back to the drawing board. I love a good restart for Pisces here. I love Pisces who aren't believing so much in the past anymore. I also really respect a Pisces during this window of time, this about 2-year window of time. I really respect a Pisces who, not from a perspective of self-loathing or overly self-critical self-communication, chooses to not be totally on board with the previous choices or actions, or I should say filters through the previous choices and actions and understands which were the most meritorious and which were not, and has a very honest dialogue and accepting dialogue about that. Because whenever the North Node is in your sign, I mean, this would be relevant for Aquarius for these next 2 years or so, there's usually some type of mistake there. Usually there is. And also incredible choices too. It's a little bit of a high contrast scenario. So there would need to be something here that's like willing to understand what was the right and the wrong choice, and not getting into like blanket scenarios, or not getting into what I would call like obliviousness, where it's like, I did everything right. Nobody can tell me I did anything wrong. Or contrarily, I can't do anything right. All I've done in my life is make mistakes. All of this like black or white extreme thinking won't do anything for you in this current nodal axis. Nothing. Okay. It's like very much obvious that many people struggled to understand nuances over the last few years, and people wanted these like oblivious all or nothing scenarios, or people wanted to I don't know, really project what they wanted to be true about others onto others, okay? And now we have to really be okay with the fact that like what we want other people to be is what we should become. So we want bad things for other people, maybe that's what we need to experience, or we want to demean or, you know, disenfranchise or disrespect other people, or perhaps engage in some type of like groupthink or group talk that enjoys some type of mentality like that. Well, maybe that's what we need to experience now. Contrarily, we want to mask over negativity, or we want to, you know, engage in like cult of personality, or believe that someone outside of ourselves can do no wrong, or, you know, my ex was right, and, you know, they were never the problem, and like I'm the only problem. Like all of this sort of unnuanced, unreal thinking has to really be put in the past. And we have to be very open here to understanding that reality is not like a 2D hyperimposed conclusion. It's like a real breathing thing, meaning that life in a lot of ways is beyond good and evil. Life is not something that we can categorize in the most simple terms. And for a lot of Pisces, it's important here to accept that I both loved and hated someone at the same time. Or I actually really needed the security of someone else's experience and my perception of that being simple to me or understandable by me in a very conclusive two-dimensional way. And like now, what does that bring about? Well, walls, isolation, 2D experiences. So like, if you're having anything that is like this, it's very good as a Pisces to accept that things are like living, breathing, and complex, and to perhaps vacate the need to possess things or to minimize or demean the nuance or complexity of certain things. Some Pisces are needing to hear that now. For some of you, you're already there. This is kind of a non-issue. And what it becomes more about, if you're not struggling with something like that, is sort of like, epilogue experiences, okay? Coming after, again, aftercare, epilogues. Something major has happened in 2025. How do I... Ooh, this is good, Pisces. Let me see if I can articulate it. How do I act, or what choices do I make after climaxes or after serious life events that I would be happy with, like, beyond my lifetime? So this is where we have to be very cautious. I mean, almost even more than in 2025, but it kind of stretches back to that too, because it's kind of like, again, the aftermath or epilogue of, you know, all that stuff in Pisces in your sign last year. You have to be very careful about impulsive, bit by bit choices or choice making. It's very much like life and death being within the power of the tongue. Okay, so like harsh words that aren't thought about can make or break many given scenarios. And we can kind of come out of these things sometimes being like, well, you know, if I could go back in time, I would change that. And it's really powerful with this nodal axis for you all to begin living in like a present scenario where you're not wishing you could go back and change things, which means really treating each and every present moment with care. It really means treating each and every relationship that you have decided is merited in your life with the type of care that doesn't lead to regret later, you know? Also, it's very possible for you to have really impacted someone or multiple people while the North Node was in your sign, and it might be advisable to clean things up, or to, if there's an apology needed, or if there is not even like apologies, just like concurrence, or some kind of any ability that you have to relieve other people is also a very good karma here. So say that you can pay a debt, say that you can tell someone who you really cared about, who's not sure at this point that you really cared about them. Say you can tell them now, like, I did care about you. Doesn't mean that this continues, but like, I did care about you. So this type of thing, you know, can really, really boost your energy, because you're like relieving other people, which, as compared to like letting pain or scars solidify or become unhealable or unresolvable because of like an abandoning or an avoidant kind of exiting from certain scenarios, this will weigh you down. Or adversely, if you were having this from someone else, you could kind of like interpret it in the opposite position. But there it does feel to me there is some kind of mission or some kind of need to clear things up. Maybe this is like a social media cleanup for some of you in the most superficial sense, but for most of you, there's like something that's like, I need to resolve that, or I need to make a choice, or I need to clean that up. Maybe you need to clean your diet up. Maybe you need to careful with like mass things. Okay, so yeah, careful with social media, careful with dating apps, careful with things that like desensitize this or add more chaos. It's like, I absolutely know that I'm either going to have to uninstall this later, or I'm going to have to clean this up or delete this, or, you know, anything that you can do to minimize that type of work would also be advisable. So also like hoarding tendencies, okay? Stockpiling things, holding on to too many physical objects. You know, I'm going to have to clean this up in the future whenever I move next. This is going to be a hassle. Or, you know, that house is running down and I've still not like, you know, gone through and worked on that. I'm going to have to deal with that later. I still haven't paid that debt off. Anything like this is like the enemy here. So this is such a rewarding nodal axis for people who are not afraid to clean up their messes. Okay. And it's not always about other people. Sometimes it's about what's in the body. Sometimes it's about, what's in the mind, or just like your day-to-day present, but it requires a lot of care and depressurization, as well as to some degree, I don't really know what the right word is. It's not like decreasing selfishness, because you do have to like really, really keep yourself healthy and be focused on maintaining the sobriety and health it requires to do what I'm outlining for you here, if it's relevant to your spiritual path. So it's not about decreasing selfishness, but I do feel that there is something here that also is, if not humanitarian in nature, then interpersonal at least. There is something relating to other people. There is something relating to people of the past, or people who are connected to you now, perhaps in like a network sense, right? With the North Node in Aquarius, the North Node in the collective 11th house, also right in your sign's collective 12th house. That's a lot of energy and sight and focus going into other people, groups, collectives. It's great, for example, here to like think, how many people have I been in a relationship with in my life? What were the common themes in all those relationships, where they suffered, or why each of the breakups happened, or what were the similar things, and how can I heal this, at least in myself? So like grouping all of these people together and understanding things in a sort of like collectivized way. Also, if we're not thinking like relationships, you know, grouping all of your colleagues together, grouping all of your coworkers together, grouping your family members together, and understanding something that you don't currently click because there's too much maybe of like a self-focus, or there's too much of a like this person, that person, like things to do with this North Node in Aquarius in your collective 12th house, that we have to be very sort of efficient in one sense, but in another sense, this is not just about individual stories anymore. This is not just about the micro element. This is like, okay, after 7 breakups, I realized that I've got to resolve something in myself. Or after, the 500th person on the dating app, I realized like there's something here that's non-contributive and broken. So this is about intelligence. This is about wisdom. This is about the school of hard knocks and learning things over time. This is about not allowing ourselves to repeat bad habits, not allowing ourselves to add like the 9th breakup that happens because of the same reason, that or the same unlearned issue, not putting ourselves through it again. Sometimes this is about tallying up, how many unnecessary calories we've eaten, or how many meals we've forgotten because we're so busy. Anything that's like negative, you have to like put it together in a larger pie now, or in a larger context, in order to see the forest for the trees. Because a Pisces who cannot see the forest for the trees at this point and continues past the point of 2025, after Saturn and Neptune have left your sign and the North Node was there, continuously goes through the same mistakes over and over again, gets with the same type of person over and over again, goes through these like perpetual loops that existed honestly before 2026. There's going to be a really, really hard story there, because we aren't the same people anymore. We don't have the same contexts. I don't know if you guys notice, now in 2026, July 23rd, as I'm filming this, 2026, if you look back even to like July of 2025, this is very different. Very different. The people in our lives are very different. The board is very different. Aging, obviously, for all of us is happening. And we can't afford to not learn. And it's not that we're not smart as Pisces people. Pisces is typically one of the smartest signs of the zodiac. It's not that we don't have the ability to learn. I'm not coming for you guys in that sense. What's happening is there's something inside eclipsing some of these lessons out. So it's not that we're not able to click it. It's not that we're not able to learn. It's not that we're stupid, okay, at all. It is that there's some type of pain, some type of habit, some type of perhaps device in our hands right now that is blocking the view and consuming all of our attention to the degree that we're going in circles. We don't want to chase our own tail. We don't want to get stuck in mental loops. We don't want another fearful, avoidant, anxious attachment relationship. We don't want to continue hurting people or to continue being hurt. We want to do better. And we also have more power now as Pisces. After all of that, in your sign, Saturn, Neptune, North Node, dear Lord, there's a lot more power now. For some Pisces, there's a lot less. Sure, like, for example, some Pisces could have, for example, gone to jail or had an accident or something. I understand with that much energy that's always would have been possible, but that's all much less likely now. There's a lot less pressure and a lot less accident indication now. So if you've had anything that you've suffered, it's different for all Pisces, if you suffered anything terrible in 2025, I don't really see it here unless we keep blocking the lesson. Okay, so this ended up being a little bit of tough love for Pisces, and I'm fine. I'm a Saturn in Pisces myself. I'm taking note of my own outlining here, and understanding also that maybe we have to put the device away. Maybe we need more time with ourselves. Maybe we need to really be careful about anything that is like a filler material. Doom scrolling, filler food. I've been talking really ad nauseum about that since the South Node went into Virgo. And now the South Node is in Leo, and we just have much stricter code, especially with the sextile to Uranus and Gemini, much stricter code about like what we allow ourselves to go through and what we feel is good enough for us. So yeah, standards are really rising here. Standards are really rising. And it's hard to be in a place where, because of some kind of unlearned lesson or because of some type of defect, we lost things in 2025 that were like perfectly appropriate or like within the right framework. And like now, because we've got this semi-sextile quincunx situation, it's much more challenging to really gravitate as like a Pisces these sort of like really large possibilities. But that in some cases could be good. Because, when things are like huge and gigantic, like the planet Jupiter, sometimes they get such a powerful gravitational field that it's easy to really lose control, right? Or really to not be very in control of our reality. So maybe this is a good thing, but like it could be kind of a neutral thing where it's like also, I don't like that my day goes to like scrolling a dating app, or I don't like that I feel isolated in like an apartment or something, or I don't like that I can't like find a job, or I feel kind of like ostracized or sort of like outcast of certain scenarios. But like this could be good also in the sense that like also really big quote unquote purposeful things could be also negative in the sort of control metric. Now you have so much control. Now you can do whatever you want. Now you have like all of this like leeway. So it feels like a very powerful time to sort of hydrate the lesson, you know what I mean? Or like really through osmosis, or through digesting all of these things, or through all of this time passing, or through all of this wisdom and age that we're accumulating at this point, finally like clicking some of the simple stuff, and in some cases walking straight out of some of this that we have deemed to be right for us over these last few years, because the paradigm is just very different now. And it's a really good nodal axis angle, the North Node semi-sextile and South Node quincunx. It's really good for kind of detouring off, or even walking certain things back, or cleaning things up. Okay, so I hope that doesn't feel heavy to you, because it's very opportune. It's just like really we have to be very caring with our present moment, and we have to also sometimes be mature and parent ourselves, I think, and understand like when we're sometimes employing things that are not high enough quality, or we're accepting things that aren't good enough, or in some cases pushing things away that are very high quality. Okay, so there's a lot of balancing out, right? Saturn and Aries debilitated. Really lean into that healthy Libra archetype to get all of this right. But I think that probably really hits a lot of it home for Pisces with this nodal axis. If you've enjoyed this reading, which I have so enjoyed it, right over 2 hours, do check out my Patreon page below, where I do sign-by-sign readings just like you've experienced in this new nodal paradigm video every single month for every single month. So we get all of these on Patreon. And in fact, they're usually a bit longer than they've been in this YouTube video, and individually available. And that's a really wonderful value. Do check that out. It will be the pinned comment and in the description box below. Also, your likes help so much on YouTube, so hit the thumbs up button, and do comment and subscribe. And share this video if you get the chance, as these all really help the channel. And I hope that you all have enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for being here on YouTube. And I will talk to you all soon. Much love. Bye.